Jeg står her med Conny Blommé, interiørdesign manager for Polestar. Hi.
Hi.
I was thinking that we'll do this in English.
All right.
Because you're Swedish.
No problem.
That's okay. I was thinking maybe you could just give us a run through of some of these fantastic design elements.
All right.
For the Polestar 6.
Okay.
And first, I'd just like to say congratulations because this car looks phenomenal.
Thank you. Yeah, and Polestar 6, we say more, this is going to be the concept. So this is the Roadster Concept.
This is the Roadster
Concept.
And
Polestar 6 will be what it will be, but this is the concept.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm going to go out the camera because the car is more important than me. So if we start in the front, tell me a little bit about what the design features are on the front.
The most clear ones in the front is of course the headlamps. They speak their own language. They're slightly separating from the form language of Volvo, which we've had a little bit closer to before. And now as we're separating paths, we're also finding out our own design language. So these are clearly more Polestar than Volvo. And a very, very clear signature, and you see the similarities from Precept, how it's evolving from Precept. Another thing that's really clear is the tech zone, the smart zone that we have in the front. So when we now don't have an engine and a radiator at the front, so we don't need to have air coming in to cool the systems in the car, we now have instead components for helping us see in front of the car when we're driving. So a smart zone we have here. So we're saying we're going from breathing to seeing in this area. Yeah. Moving over to the side, you see clearly on the proportions of this car. If you just step away a little bit, you can see the proportions is quite a short car, but it's got somewhat long wheelbase, but instead very, very short overhangs to give you that compact feel of a sports car. And of course then with no engine at the front, which is protruding very high. Of course we have an engine, but it's an electric motor, so it doesn't take the same space. We can push all this volume down and get this fantastic volume over the front wheel and get the proportions down, which is like the main thing of this car.
Because one thing I noticed that when you look at the car in profile, if I just go back here, the driver sits very much in the center of the car.
Yes, center of gravity. We talk a lot about center of gravity, trying to get everything to get to the center of gravity. So if you step away again and just have a look at like the A-pillar direction into the front wheel and how then the rear kind of has the same direction. We're trying to point everything to the center of gravity. The same with the stance, how you try to push out the wheel and have the wheel arch sit flush with the wheel, and then every surface coming away from that so that the wheel arch becomes the widest point of the car. And again, pushing everything towards the center of gravity. And that gives us these lovely pools of light on top of the wheels from a side view that really clearly describes the shape of being protruding through the body side. Yeah? Stance, the good stance of the car, that it stands well on a...
Stance,
that's the word.
When it's standing.
It's the presence of the car on the road, you know, how it really stands and holds the road.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we've got the digital mirrors here.
Yes.
Is that something that will be standard, do you think? Or?
This is something we're looking into. I mean, there are pros and cons on these mirrors. Of course, it's very, very good for aero. It's a super good thing for aero. You reduce a lot of drag, you get less turbulence on the side. But we have to think about it in a sustainable way now. If we have two cameras, two screens on the inside, where is the balance? Is the balance to reduce the drag coefficient, or is the balance to not have too many components in the car? So that's ongoing, I think, development, trying to find out.
So if we move along to the side here, this is quite special as well. Is this to do with the aerodynamics?
It's partly to do with aerodynamics. I mean, we're trying to break up the volume as best we can. We have a low floor and somewhat of a high belt line. And to break up the volume in a nice way, we want to introduce some features, but those features are not there for just show. So you have aero going in here, so you bring in air behind the rear wheel, and it actually goes through the car and comes out on the outside, so you can see on the diffuser at the back. So it's sort of supposed to be a designed element to take care of airflow and improve the drag coefficient of the car. And that you can see as well on like the tail lamp, how we work with this as like an aero blade, so you can actually control very specific where you've got the release point of the air as it drags along the car. So using design elements on the car to control factors that affects us very much.
we've got this beautiful kind of pinstripe that goes all the way around the bottom here, and it's along the front as well. It's just this kind of attention to detail, these small things on this car that, you know, when start looking closer at it, it's just so impressive.
But that's I think, a little bit of the Polestar way now. We're trying to really go into detail with everything, understand the components each one by one. And you can see it super clearly if you look at the wheel. We go all the way into like the little fine details around the badge on the center and really try to figure out the best way to resolve every single problem on the car.
And the interior, that's quite special as well. And you've had a lot of focus on being sustainable, with both the choice of materials and the way it's been built.
Yeah, exactly. Both from Precept and into this car. So on Precept we introduced the B-comp, the material that you see on the upper portion here, which we have then extended in this car to a wider area. So we're maximizing the use of it. And you will also see that being used in production. We're trying to bring it into production. So yeah, and we also look at this monomaterial, because recycling of the interior is really difficult. So we've had these thoughts of how we can better recycle the car, and it's a lot of talk about monomaterial now. So that's something that we're trying to understand, how you could like make an armrest. And when you say monomaterial, it means that you make the basic structure, the foam on the soft parts and the dress coat on top, from polymers of the same base. So you could take the complete armrest and recycle it as one piece instead of having to strip things apart. So it's just trying to be a little bit more sensible how the afterlife of the car is, but we take that into the consideration of the design work.
And some of the materials are 3D knitted?
Yes, so again, that was introduced on the Precept, and it's like the top of the seat. We 3D knit it. You can't see it on this model, unfortunately, but you can see it on the Precept pictures, how it's a 3D knitted sock, the same technology as sports shoes are made out of. You 3D knit the shape, or you 3D knit it. So you have no waste material, you have no cut-off. It's just woven into shape and just pulled on.
So, there's a lot of elements on this car. You've obviously been very involved with this right from the word go.
Absolutely.
Which part of this car is your favourite part of the car?
I think it's super difficult to give you a favourite part. I would say the interior, since I'm responsible and have worked mainly with the interior, but I think what impresses me the most is the seamlessness of it, that it actually, whatever angle you look at it, with or without the roof on it, it will look great, and everything is kind of in harmony with each other. There are no areas that feels like they're left and being forgotten about or taken last hand. Everything is just melting together in a nice way.
And we see quite often with concept cars, this is not the pre-concept car, this is after the pre-concept car that was shown earlier?
Yeah, so this is the second model that we have,
right.
But it's the same car.
Yeah. So what we see quite often with this is that what we get presented and then what is actually coming out in production, sometimes it's kind of like, oh no, what happened?
Sometimes it loses it.
But how much of this car, as it stands now, do you think? I mean, obviously you probably want the thing to look exactly the same. How much is it going to look like this?
I mean, it's super difficult question to answer. We don't even know all the technical restrictions yet, but we try to be as honest as possible when we make our concepts. And I think if you look at like the from concept to production on the Precept, you can start to see how far off we are on that car, and then I think that can make your assumptions for this car.
Well, thank you so much for showing us this beautiful car. Normally, as a car journalist, I try not to get too affected by the way things look, but this car looks just phenomenal, and I think it's astonishing that Polestar has managed to create this fantastic machine in such a short amount of time as well. Because, you know, we've got like the classic supercar production companies that you've got hundreds of years to make their cars look like they do now, and this is just ridiculous. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Go that way.
Yeah.
Hold the camera with your hand, and can't wait to see this on the road.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.